Imagine this. A new political system just sweeps in. And it's not just about changing laws, oh no. It wants to reshape the entire creative soul of a place.
Yeah, basically erase decades of art culture.
And force every single writer, every actor, every musician down one single, narrow ideological path. No exceptions.
That's exactly what we're diving into today. This systematic imposition of Bolshevik doctrine on culture right across Central and Eastern Europe after 45.
And we're using the Western Romanian city of Arad as our focus. A really telling case study, it seems.
That's right. Our mission really is to get a handle on how this system tried to control thought itself. Creativity, identity.
It's a huge undertaking.
Absolutely. And the sources we have paint a picture of a doctrine demanding total obedience. There's this quote from the Romanian literary critic Nicolae Manolescu.
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
He called it the most dogmatic system in human history. Said it actually surpassed Catholic and Islamic fundamentalism in its rigidity.
Wow. Okay, that really sets the stage. The most dogmatic system. So how did they actually manage that kind of total control?
Well, it starts with the mechanics.
Right. So today, we'll trace that initial machinery, the censorship, the ideological training. We'll look at the immediate impact, especially on professional arts like the theater in Arad.
And how the political doctrine itself kind of shifted over time.
Yeah, the different phases. And maybe most importantly, how community culture, tradition somehow managed to, survive underneath it all, resist even.
Okay, so to grasp that level of control, you have to look at the specific mechanisms they put in place. Right after the Communist parties took power, with the Red Army's backing, of course.
It wasn't just random checks then.
Oh, definitely not. They didn't rely on, sporadic efforts. It was immediate, systematic.
So what was the main tool? How did they operationalize it?
Surveillance and suppression, right from the start. Censorship wasn't just censorship. It became this veritable industry.
In industries?
Yeah. Making sure absolutely nothing got published or staged or even broadcast without the Communist Party saying, okay, first. And this huge cultural offensive, its main target was anything they labeled bourgeois culture.
And we see specific examples in Arad, right? Like the Palace of Culture.
Exactly. A historic building, instantly renamed the People's Athenaeum, but maybe even more striking, they actually disbanded the symphonic music ensembles.
Just gone. Why?
Well, because those kinds of high arts were linked to the old European culture, the Austro-Hungarian influence, the interwar Romanian liberalism, stuff that had shaped the region for ages.
So it was a threat to the new popular culture they wanted.
Precisely. Seen as completely opposed to the proletarian culture the state was trying to, engineer.
The scale of this, the bureaucracy needed must have been huge. How fast did they set up this control network in a place like Arad County?
Incredibly quickly. And structurally. Cultural committees popped up everywhere, in factories, on farms, in villages.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. The sources show that by 1947, just a couple of years in Arad County, already had over 370 of these cultural activists. Their job, enforce the party line across 140 different institutions.
Wow. And these activists, these enforcers, they had to be thoroughly indoctrinated themselves, right? Where did that training come from?
Initially, they sent cultural leaders straight to the Soviet Union for training based on the Zhdanov model.
Zhdanovism. So art strictly serving the party lines, socialist realism.
Exactly that. Then, later, they localized it in Romania with this compulsory ideological school, Hast von Gheorghiu.
Compulsory?
Yes. And here's the really telling part about its priorities. The school would accept students without a high school diploma, but it granted them a university degree when they finished.
So political loyalty trumped any kind of actual academic background.
Completely. It was all about creating loyal enforcers for the system.
Okay, that system clearly valued loyalty above all else. Let's shift to part 2. Arad wasn't just any city. You mentioned it was on the western edge of Romania. Why did that make it particularly vulnerable to this cultural purge?
Oh, it was an absolutely strategic thing for the party. Those western regions, they had decades, centuries really, of European influence.
Yeah.
Much more open to liberal ideas.
And the population mix was different too, wasn't it?
Crucially, large communities of Hungarians, Germans, Jews, people who often had ties abroad. That made them harder to just, homogenize into the new national narrative. They were seen as potentially resistant.
And the first move to control them was just dissolution, getting rid of any independent groups.
Exactly. Even groups that might have seemed like allies, like the Hungarian People's Union, gone. Venerable cultural societies like the Kolkzi Society shut down immediately.
And then the infrastructure followed.
Yep. Once the groups were gone, They targeted the means of expression. By 1949, all the Hungarian publishing houses in Arad were closed. Everything had to go through state-owned, party-censored printing presses.
Let's focus on the human cost here. The Arad People's Theater, specifically its Hungarian section, started right after the war, 1945. It was popular, right?
Very popular locally. But the ideologues in Bucharest, they weren't happy. They quickly started criticizing the repertoire.
Why? What was wrong with it?
Not enough Soviet plays. Simple as that. It wasn't considered ideologically sound.
And the pressure wasn't just criticism, was it? It got personal.
It became unbearable.
Yeah.
And terrifying. We have this just horrifying example of the comic actor Benka Gürki.
What happened to him?
He was on tour with the company. They arrested him right off the stage.
No.
Yes, and held him in detention for, get this, 45 months, almost 4 years, without trial.
45 months without trial, just grabbed off stage.
Exactly. That kind of raw terror. It ensures compliance much faster than any bureaucratic order. Sends a chilling message.
And the local press, already under party control, was adding fuel to the fire, demanding art serve socialism.
Oh, yes. Constantly reinforcing the idea that art's role was to strengthen the masses on the road to socialism. The pressure was immense.
So what was the final straw? The official act that shut down the professional Hungarian theater.
The hammer finally fell in 1948. A special commission came down from Bucharest. They held individual auditions.
Auditions for actors already performing?
Yes. And then they just declared the official suspension of the entire Hungarian section.
What was the reason they gave?
It was vague. Something like most actors did not convince the commission. That was it.
And the final performances.
They played The Teacher by Brody Sandor. Apparently the houses were packed, people were crying, they knew what it meant.
A kind of cultural funeral, marking the end of professional Hungarian theater in Arad for, what, over 50 years?
Over 50 years, yes. Just gone.
Now, what's interesting is that even though the control remained intense, the doctrine itself wasn't totally static, was it? There were shifts.
That's right. You see this brief period after 1964 when Romania started to pull away a bit from strict Soviet control, a kind of national path.
And that led to a slight loosening up culturally, a thaw.
Exactly. A momentary relaxation. Publishing houses were reorganized, theater repertoires became a bit more diverse. Arad even got a weekly TV program in Hungarian for a while.
But that cultural breathing room didn't last long, did it?
No, it slammed shut pretty abruptly in 1972. Nicolae Ionescu came out with his ideological theses. People called it the small cultural revolution.
And this brought in something else entirely.
Oh, yeah. The full-blown cult of personality. It started rivaling Stalin's in its sheer intensity and absurdity.
What did that look like, day to day, for ordinary people?
Ionescu's portrait was suddenly mandatory everywhere. Public buildings, schools, offices, TV programming, which was already cut back to just 2 hours a day because of energy shortages.
For only 2 hours.
Only 2 hours. And most of that was devoted to glorifying Ceausescu. His speeches, his visits, his family, textbooks, publications, they had to start with his picture and a quote. It was inescapable.
And censorship got even more specific during this period, this national communism phase.
Hyper-specific. It targeted both Romanian and minority expression, often under this banner of national unity, which really meant assimilation. You see plays getting banned after literally one performance.
Can you give an example?
Sure. There was a play, Tragedy for Two, by a Hungarian writer, Kanyadi Sandor, banned after just one showing in Arad.
And it wasn't just minority writers.
No, celebrated Romanian writers too. Marin Sorescu's play, Pericliserol, famous play, suffered exactly the same fate. Banned. Well-known writers like Sute Andras, Beke Georgi, banned repeatedly from publishing.
So the state wasn't just censoring anymore, it was actively trying to homogenize the culture, erase differences.
That seems to be the goal, yes. Enforcing a single, state-approved cultural identity.
So if all the professional avenues were shut down or heavily controlled, where did all that creative energy go? Some intellectuals left the country, right?
Yes, part of Arad's intellectual elite did emigrate, but others stayed. Some just withdrew from public life entirely. Others, though, found ways to channel their creativity into these semi-official structures.
What kind of structures?
Well, they poured energy into what was still sort of permissible. Amateur groups. Community activities. Amateur theater troupes became absolutely vital.
Like the Periscope Popular Theater.
Exactly. Founded in the late 1960s. And crucially, it included some of the former professional actors who hadn't left Arad. These performances became a lifeline. They drew hundreds of spectators, people who were just hungry for any culture that wasn't state propaganda.
But even amateur stuff faced censorship, right? I read about a high school play, Grandmother.
Oh, yes, that's a classic example of the absurdity. They banned the entire production
Why?
because one of the characters was a countess.
A countess in a high school play. They thought that was politically dangerous.
Apparently so. The party authorities saw it as promoting unacceptable bourgeois sentiment. It shows just how seriously they took the class struggle doctrine, even in, a school play. No detail was too small if it deviated from the line.
Incredible. Literature also found refuge in these kinds of circles, didn't it? There was a Hungarian literary circle in Era.
Yes. Initially, it named itself after Petőfi Sándor, the great Hungarian national poet.
But they changed the name.
They did. In 1956, they made a very quick, very strategic retreat. They renamed it Tóth Arpád.
Why this sudden change? What was wrong with Petőfi?
Well, think about the timing. 1956. The Hungarian Revolution had just erupted in Budapest. And the ideological spark for that revolution came directly from a literary circle in Budapest called the Petőfi Circle.
So the name itself became instantly toxic, dangerous.
Extremely dangerous. The Arad group was smart. They immediately cut that association by renaming themselves after Tóth Arpád, a respected local literary figure, but not politically charged. It was purely about survival, keeping the space open under constant surveillance.
And these circles became important workshops,
Huh.
keeping things alive.
Absolutely vital. They were creative incubators. They maintained connections with writers elsewhere. They hosted people who couldn't operate publicly.
But even with that clever maneuvering actually getting published, that remained incredibly difficult, didn't it?
Brutal. Almost impossible sometimes.
Yeah.
They have talented poets like Olas Lajos, silenced for years. He only managed to publish again after that brief thaw in 1965.
And the journalist Károly Sándor.
Banned from publishing entirely in the early 1950s. He was forced to work as an unskilled laborer for years before he was eventually cautiously rehabilitated.
Just trying to create a record, an anthology, was a battle.
A constant battle,
Yeah.
often lost. That Tóth Arpád circle, they did manage finally to publish one anthology called Self-Portrait in 1982. A huge achievement.
But there was a second one.
Yes. They put together a whole second anthology.
Yeah.
It was completely finished, edited, even sent to the printers, and then pulled, withdrawn. No explanation given, just orders from Bucharest, gone. It just shows that final, arbitrary power the state held. They could snatch away years of work right at the finish line.
And beyond the arts, this control extended to history itself, didn't it? The state imposed its own narrative.
Oh, absolutely. There was this mandatory nationalistic historical dogma pushed from Bucharest. It focused heavily on Daco-Roman continuity.
Right, the idea that modern Romanians are direct descendants of Roman colonists and the ancient Dacians, right there in that territory.
Exactly. And constructing this unified history often meant ignoring or, well, twisting the histories of regions like Transylvania, and especially the histories of the minority groups.
So this connects back to the assimilation goal, using history to legitimize it.
Precisely. It was part of justifying the push for a homogenous nation. And local historians in Arad, Hungarians like Kovács or Gluckino, who were researching actual minority history, local history.
What happened to their work?
Often, they literally had to publish it in their desk drawers, as the source says. Or maybe get it into obscure publications somewhere else, outside the main channels. It was like maintaining a secret history, parallel to the official one.
You can really see this effort to control memory in how the state handled the commemoration of the 13 martyrs of Arad. That's a key historical event for the city, especially for Hungarians.
It's a perfect microcosm, yes. It started off okay, right after the war. In 1949, there was even a harmonious joint commemoration.
But that didn't last.
No. By 1973, the state ordered the museum collection of relics related to the martyrs to be abolished. Just discursed, hidden away.
And it got worse.
Much worse. By the very last commemoration under the regime, October 6, 1989, just before the revolution, the police completely sealed off the execution site monument. Nobody could get near it.
How did they justify that?
Get this. They claimed there was a motorcycle race scheduled for that exact spot, that exact day.
A motorcycle race
But-
at the Martyrs' Monument.
Utterly fabricated, of course. Just pure intimidation. But despite that kind of official pressure, local traditions showed amazing resilience. Sometimes they even forced the state to kind of accept certain community gatherings.
Like the Maylot Sunday celebration. That sounds interesting.
Yes, that was a really clever initiative, again led by the historian Kovács. In 1970, he basically proposed rebaptizing a traditional religious holiday.
Rebaptized.
Yeah. The Assumption of Mary in August is a big religious day. The state might have eventually tried to suppress it. So Kovacs suggested reframing it as the Mail-Out Sunday traditional celebration.
Making it sound like a folk tradition, not just religion.
Exactly. Focusing on folk groups, cultural activities, things the state found more acceptable under its folkloric policies. It created a kind of legal, permissible space.
And did it work?
Brilliantly. The event became huge. It really helped revitalize the Hungarian community's cohesion in the county, and it actually continues to this day. Real cultural agility there.
Amazing. And finally, we should touch on the visual arts. It seems they had a slightly easier time.
Slightly, yes. Maybe seen as less directly political sometimes. Watercolorists like Pateki Sandor, graphic artists, they managed to flourish. Some gained recognition elsewhere.
And there was that rural art gallery.
Unique achievement, really. The first art gallery in a rural area in Zirund opened in 1974, entirely funded by donations, which is remarkable.
And photography, too.
Yes, Kellen Frank reorganized the Arad Photo Club. He managed to gain international recognition for his work, operating within that club structure. So pockets of success were possible.
Okay, so bringing this all together, what does it ultimately show us?
Well, it really reveals this constant duality, doesn't it? On one hand, you've got this top-down, centrally planned, incredibly dogmatic system aiming to homogenize, to assimilate, using censorship on an almost industrial scale, using fear, using bureaucracy.
Total control as the goal.
Yes. But on the other hand, you have these persistent, often quite clever grassroots efforts bubbling up from below. The amateur theaters, the strategically renamed literary circles, the rebaptized folk festivals.
Ways to keep local identity alive.
It's exactly
Yeah.
keeping cultural memory and local identity alive, fighting back against what seemed like overwhelming total dominance.
It's that timeless tension, isn't it, between imposed ideology and the, I don't know, the spontaneous human need for genuine expression. It makes you think, considering the sheer weight of the control you've described. The
Yeah.
bans, the arrests, the pervasive censorship, the intimidation. What level of control does it actually take before a suppressed culture, a community, loses its ability to just spontaneously gather and sing its national anthem, like the Hungarians in Arad kept doing year after year at that martyrs monument, even when the police were standing right there, even when they invented that ridiculous motorcycle race in '89 to keep them away?
That's the question, isn't it?
Where is that breaking point? Maybe the answer lies somewhere in that enduring power of community, of shared memory that somehow keeps resisting.